Hello everyone, Bard here, and welcome to another movie review. Pixar has been known for taking ideas and turning them into something unique. But then there's cases where one film would generate a sequel, sometimes unexpected or better than the original, but still have the likability and charm of it. However, one of their films isn't a sequel, it's a prequel. But is it as good or better than the original? Well, let's find out with Monsters University, or Monsters U. Now, the story has a lot to go over, and I'm going to keep it as simple as possible, and go into a little more detail later on. After taking a school field trip to Monsters, Inc., Mike Wazowski decides to become a scarer by attending Monsters University years later, where he enters the scare program and studies every day to become a scary monster. But when James, or Jimmy P. Sully Sullivan, enters the program, the two become enemies, which leads them to being removed from the program by Dean Hardscrabble, who tells Mike that he's not scary, and Sully that he fails to know about being a good scarer. But determined to get back in the program, Mike joins the Greek scare games to prove to Hardscrabble that he's scary. So with being part of the fraternity named Uzma Kappa, along with Sully joining in, Mike trains the misfit monsters for the games in hopes of getting into the scare program or being expelled from Monsters University. Once again, I'll go over the good stuff first. The designs of the monsters, including the new ones, are still wonderful. Their colors, texture, look, and creativity are pretty good. And the new characters have some likability to them, but at times it's more in their designs. Yet it's neat to see that Randall, or Randy in this case, was roommates with Mike, but then turns against him and Sully when joining with the big guys on campus. He even wore glasses at one point, but by removing them, it makes him look more menacing and less geeky. And what about the story? Well, I find it to be all fine, but continuity-wise, it's a miss. And by continuity, I mean how this movie compares to the first film. In the original, it's indicated from the teaser trailer and by the creators that Mike and Sully were friends since childhood. But here, this is where they first met, became foes, and then friends as the film moves along. What on earth happened before these films? Maybe they met during childhood and then forgot years later, but that's stretching it. The new characters were never mentioned in the previous film, and a couple of the old characters make cameos, which makes me wonder how on earth did Mike and Sully not know about their previous jobs in the last film. It's fine to see how they started out, but it makes little sense when going from this film to the next. But the biggest distraction for me that I never knew until now, which is the same for the other small distractions, is that the students at Monsters U make doors that lead to the human world. And since they make doors that become portals to the human realm, does that mean that monsters are God? Were they responsible for creating life on Earth? Were all those doors in the last film, including Boo's, made in 7 days that were part of the Big Bang? How did they know what's on the other side? When did they know about our world? Sure, the doors made at Monsters U were a school project and the ones in the first film were made somewhere in the factory, but this is just so mind-boggling that it's hard to enjoy the rest with this in mind. Also, Sully's father, Bill Sullivan, is mentioned several times, but isn't shown, and the characters in the film say Sully's father is famous for... I don't know, the film never explains it. But this just makes it questionable when going into the next film, where the father isn't mentioned at all. They all may be nitpicks for a decent film, but they're big distractions for me. Yet, the actors voicing the characters are well done. Billy Crystal voices Mike Wazowski, John Goodman voices James P. Sully Sullivan, Steve Buscemi voices Randy Boggs, Helen Mirren voices Dean Abigail Hardscrabble, Peter Sohn voices Scott Squishy Squibbles, Joel Murray voices Don Carlton, Sean Hayes voices Terry, Dave Foley voices Terry, Charlie Day voices Art, Alfred Molina voices Professor Knight, Nathan Fillion voices Johnny J. Worthington, Tyler Lebin voices Greek Council VP, Aubrey Plaza voices Greek Council President, and Julia Sweeney voices Mrs. Sherry Squibbles. And a special mention to Bob Peterson as Roz, and John Rauschenberger as the Abominable Snowman, or Yeti. As a whole, this movie is good. The characters are good, the story is fine as is, and the animation is fun to watch. Director Dan Scanlon has done a fine job at bringing back a few previous characters as their younger self, while also introducing new characters in a new setting with lots of color and fun designs. But being that it's a prequel, it kind of suffers through some continuity errors when compared to the first film and when taking creative liberties. Aside from that, the whole film is just as good. Not enjoyable as the original, but pretty close. So today, this movie will be given a rating of... let me think here. 3 stars.